My name is Louise Hartland, and I'm a reporter at CTV Vancouver Island, and I'm so happy to be here. I've been covering Social Media Camp all week this week, and I've learned so much. But I think one of the most important lessons that I've taken away from this weekend and from the days leading up to it is the power of social media and the empowerment social media gives every person, power to use their voice in any way they choose. And the most powerful way, of course, is to influence others and try and promote change. And from talking to our guest speaker today, that is exactly what Kris Krug is doing. And our talks have been amazing, and I've learned a lot from him just over the last 2 days, and I'm sure we all will today as well. But he was recognized last night, I guess, for his work with the Derek K. Miller Award. So please, without any further ado, welcome Kris Krug.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you too, and I had fun yesterday. There's a couple other talks going on right now. There's a tourism talk going on next door, and there's a Facebook ads talk, I think, going on a couple doors down. So if you're here for that, you're going to be disappointed. This is a chance to graciously leave now without too much embarrassment. But thanks for coming. I get nervous when I speak in public, and these notes are a crutch, so I'm going to try to not use them too much. You may have noticed on the internet or in the brochure that this talk had a bit of a confusing title. It was called something like "Action is the Antidote to Despair: Empowerment Through Art and Activism and Technology," or something like that. And where that idea came from is, so I'm a photographer. I'm an artist and an activist, and I spend a lot of my time traveling and working with nonprofits and charities on issues that are important to us and facing us. Climate change. I just got back from the oil sands. Pardon me? Oil sands, tar sands, Canada's dirty oil project. Making a documentary about environment up there and stuff. Anyway, so photography and internet, the intersection of the two is my sweet spot. And so I was down in the BP oil spill taking photographs for National Geographic magazine and trying to get a sense of there was a media blackout taking place down there, and there was, you're seeing Anderson Cooper show up on television every day with oiled birds and people out of work, and it was just like a miserable scenario, and you're hearing that BP was keeping journalists out. And so we decided to go down there and figure out what the heck was actually going on. And after spending a month down there, I came back with a lot of rad photos, but a really, really heavy heart. We didn't know how to stop the oil coming out of the ground. It was ruining everything around, and it was all kind of hopeless, right? And so I was kind of faced with this question of how do you stay active and positive and engaged and really able to produce great content and kind of share your talents with the world in face of these big, hairy problems that seemingly are insurmountable or whatever. And so I started to go on this personal exploration of how do I continue to do this over the long term and stay positive, happy, activated in spite of the kind of overwhelming nature of this stuff. And so that's where this talk's been percolating for a while, and for me that ended up being things like taking these big, huge problems and digesting them in a small way with your community, making art, doing activism, working on things kind of in your family, in your friend circle, in your geographic community. And this is the way to digest these overwhelming problems. And so this is where this talk was coming from, except I realized that it ended up kind of being a depressing talk. And so I kind of scratched that last week. And so this talk's now called Life, Love, and the Internet. And I usually, when I talk at things like this, I talk like a technical talk. I talk about how to use social media or a campaign I've done, or I talk about photography. And I very rarely talk really much about myself or who I am or where I've come from and why I have this perspective that is some ways stands in opposition to other people and how they use the internet or whatever. So anyway, long way of saying, I hope to share with you guys a little bit about my personal story today as well, and hopefully that meets you where you're at. It doesn't just sound like me kind of talking about myself too much. So let's see what we got here. That was the warning. So I'm American. I grew up in California. I grew up in a Christian home. My mom was a school teacher, and my dad was a bureaucrat. And I don't mean to need to belabor the point or anything, but intellectualism, creativity, asking questions, they're not highly valued in my youth and growing up or whatever. And so those are my formative years, but my dad was a super geek, so we always had technology around my house. my dad brought home an Apple IIe in the 80s with like a 9600 baud modem. And, so from like 1986, I was like online, full steam ahead, bulletin boards, hacking into other systems. And like, so technology is definitely a part of my DNA and where I came from. I realized this week as I was preparing this talk, I've been online for like 30 years now, more or less, 25 years, which was kind of like a bit of an epiphany in and of itself. So that's kind of where I came from. I moved to Canada in search of powder and mountains and blackcomb. I was an aspiring professional snowboarder. Moved here when I was 17 to go to university. And, imagine it's 1995. The internet is just taken off. First graphical web browser was just released. And I have a strong technical background. Like I knew about the internet. I knew TCP and protocols and stuff. So I was able to slide right into this. So here I am, 17 years old. I'm just arrived in Canada. It's 1995. The internet's booming. And there's a huge demand amongst every professor on campus for the skills that build me a website, sell my book me speaking opportunities and stuff. So I arrive in Canada. I moved away from my family. I'm moving into kind of the land where I can be free to think and open my mind a little bit and kind of step outside everything I've been taught. And technology's booming. And I was able to kind of like from the moment I came to Canada, hit the ground running with technology. I was building websites for professors. I built the first website for my university. And it really began to like open up a lot of doors for me. And in 1998, after I've been doing it for a couple years, this is like ancient times on the internet, 14, 15 years ago, me and 5 buddies started an online magazine called Spark Online. And the tagline of it was exploring electronic consciousness. And so this magazine was like formative for me and maybe even for parts of the internet in some ways because, like we were running an online community way before this kind of stuff existed. So there was no content management systems that were available for free and accessible to us like WordPress. There was no idea of blog posts and multiple authors and comments and a discussion thing going on. So we like duct taped together, handcrafted HTML pages with an ultimate bulletin board system tagged onto the bottom of each post. And we had this net art gallery that was kind of showcasing all these out there kind of net art and stuff. People were experimenting with these new mediums, and we were talking philosophy. We were talking about like what does it mean to have a digital self, and how is the internet changing perceptions of friendship and geography and who we are and stuff. And so, for me and the guys and girls that ran that project like got us off on the right foot. We got to know internet people, we got to know San Francisco, New York people, and it really blew up and grew and really kind of gave us a great foothold on which to kind of explore the rest of the internet further. So it ran for 3 years. It grew pretty big, and it crushed under the weight of its own success. Like we had to hand code it. We took paradigms from the old world, like a monthly magazine with sections and articles, and we applied that to the internet. This is the day and age when like every e-commerce shop on the internet looked like a shopping mall. They were trying to like recreate the shopping experience online, and we were taking old paradigms from old world and putting them on the internet. So this thing grew. We had to publish it every month, and it died under the weight of its own successes. It was too big, and so we let it go. But I was fully off to the races at this point. I had built up a little interactive business that I partnered with a guy in Nanaimo. There's this agency called Primal Communications in Nanaimo, and they didn't have an interactive division, and I had this little interactive nascent growing business, and so we partnered up, and so I was kind of like well on my way to being here, publishing online and stuff, and so. Bear with me. I think some of all this history is kind of important to figure out where I ended up. So in 1999, I moved to California. I took a job with a Silicon Valley startup and started to kind of like ascend the ranks of corporate marketing. Like I had a young family. I have a 14-year-old daughter who came with me to the awards last night. It was pretty awesome. And I was kind of like doing what I was told. I graduated with a degree. I had a baby, had a wife, had a fat cat corporate job, was ascending the ranks of marketing with a Silicon Valley startup, learning a lot about different peripheral industries like communications, public relations, advertising, corporate communications, and the other thing, graphic design, web development, the things that support kind of peripherally web strategy and digital interactive stuff. But I was like, I was pretty unhappy, like I was commuting a couple hours every day to work, and they'd feed you at work, and so I wouldn't leave my desk, and I got up over 200 pounds. I was very unhappy and fat, and I wasn't in a very good place, right? I was barely keeping my head above water, just trying to do all the things the world told me that I was supposed to do. And at the moment when I was probably at my weakest, tragedy hit my family. We had a son, and he was born with a host of problems. They helicoptered him to Stanford University's neonatal intensive care unit as soon as he was born, and he spent like the next 3 weeks, in there, and many times close to dying. You know, like there was a lot of risky moments and stuff, and he ended up having surgeries and seizure disorders, and you know all this host of things. So here I am, a young dad, young marketing executive, working my ass off, being somewhat successful, and barely keeping my head above water, and being unsatisfied with kind of the results of my work and my success and stuff. And you know, it was a really challenging, dark time for me. And the reason I kind of lay all this down for you is to bring you into the new era for me, which is there's a point in which my camera and becoming a photographer literally like kind of saved my life. So I was, you know, fat, unhappy, depressed, barely holding the family together, and kind of miserable. You know, like I didn't really know what to look for in life. You know, like, you know, my Christian family and my upbringing had said, you know, marriage, family, home, job, house, this stuff, and it wasn't working for me, right? And I was depressed, and I was like sitting around waiting to die, which is like a pretty sad thing at a, you know, 25-year-old guy to say that or whatever. Right? I just didn't know really what I wasn't engaged. And so in my work life, this company that I was working for went through this big corporate merger and stuff, and so we all had to stay at the company, but we didn't have jobs to do really. Like we didn't have actual work to do, but we all had to stay there to ride out our tenure and get our stock options and stuff. And so a lot of free time, a lot of revolving door of marketing executives and stuff. And so I decided at some point that it would be cheaper for me to buy a camera and shoot these guys who were just going to be around for a few weeks than it was to hire a photographer and go through the whole rigmarole. And so it was just a very pragmatic decision. But having that camera in my life started to trigger something. On the weekends, I would take my camera home with me just as a way to kind of like get out of the house. Like I was in kind of a contentious situation, as I've been alluding to, you know, with my whole family life and stuff. And I just needed a break. And so I'd take my camera home on the weekend, and my eyes would pop open, the sun would be up, and I'd grab my camera, and I'd hit the streets of San Francisco, and I'd just go out, and I'd just wander around. It gave me something to do that was active, but, you know, but out of the house and doing something. And in the process of doing this, I had an awakening, you know? Like I started connecting with people again, and I started having these flashbacks of who I used to be when I was a younger guy and what I was all about and stuff. And I kind of got like that spark for life kind of lit back up again through getting out on the streets with my camera. And then I'd bring those photos back to my creative services department where I was the VP of marketing at this software company. We had a big fat 11 by 17 Xerox printer that was maintained by the company. And so I'd print out these elaborate photo books of all these. This was just for me. I was just killing time. I'd print out these elaborate photo books of all the places I had been, the people I had seen and stuff, and I would leave them around in the marketing department. And people started to like pick them up and like react to them and like pull me aside. You know, it was clear to my friends and my employees and my coworkers that I wasn't very happy. You know, and so they started like pulling me aside and being like, I don't know what this is you're doing, but this is what you need to do. This is really, really awesome. There's something going on here. And like, so I started getting a little bit more into it. I created a Flickr account. This is like 2003. And I started sharing my images online. And, you know, every day for the last 10 years, I have now edited, you know, photographed, edited, uploaded, and shared photos online every day for like the last 10 years. And part of it was because some of the response I was getting. So here I am taking photos of my young, disabled, barely holding on to life son and sticking them on the internet. And they're beautiful, and people are reacting to them, and they're being moved by them and stuff, right? And like in 2003, Flickr bought one of the photos of my son and made it the homepage for Flickr's website, all through the height of their success, through Stuart and Katarina being on the cover of Time magazine, and Yahoo acquired Flickr. My son, you know, who I could barely like stand up in front of people and tell them. You know, a lot of times when people meet me, I tell them I have a daughter. I don't always tell them I have a son because it's a bigger story. It requires us getting to know each other a little bit and me like sharing something. So, you know, here, this kind of dark, tragic thing that had happened to me was being celebrated, you know, and my camera is waking me back up to life, and I'm able to start to process some of this stuff that I'm going through with my son via, you know, art and photography and the internet. And it really just started to, it kind of clicked for me that things didn't have to be, for me, the way that they were right now. You know, I started to feel kind of like re-empowered, reawakened, inspired, and like have that like love for life again and stuff. So, long story short, I began a process of re-architecting my life such to reconnect with my passions again, to do the things that I cared about. I promised myself that I'd never find myself in a situation again where I was like totally disconnected from the fruits of my labor, where I was just a cog in a marketing machine and we were selling widgets to some guy, and I never really got to see that. I was unhappy. The idle mind is the devil's playground, and it just wasn't for me. I decided not to do it anymore. So I moved back to Canada, and I started a little open source community web startup with some other guys in Vancouver with Boris Manroll and Tango. It was called Bright. And we were building open source websites and getting people online, and I was sharing my photos and traveling around like selling this stuff. I'm on the advisory board for South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, and my company had a lot of success in technology, and so I was going to these cool places with my camera, and that was really kind of opening up the world to me. I was seeing lots of things and really growing there and stuff. And so that was a step along the way from me kind of like leaving the world behind of like the corporate shackles and the kind of world that I've been told, and kind of getting out on my own and exploring things for myself a little bit. And every time I started to gravitate into the area of my passions, I was being met with success. I was being met with, like intrinsic success, feeling good about it, being proud of my work, feeling happy, and then, external success, people being touched by it, moved by it, and changed by it, and then talking about the effect that it had on their lives. So I realized I was the biggest person holding myself back from being who I wanted to be. And so I quit my job there, and I decided to become a photographer full-time, and this was in like 2009. It's a scary thing, but I've never been busier since the day. Like I'm busier and busier every month since the day I quit, and it's been really awesome. It's led me into some cool projects. So I work for TED. I just got back from 5 weeks in Qatar, where I was in the Middle East documenting the first TED event over in the Middle East. It was awesome. My mind was expanded, and I learned a lot. I've gotten to work on a lot of cool documentaries. I'm working on. I just released an oil sands documentary called Cry Wolf. There's a pretty appalling thing going on up in Fort McMurray, Alberta. So there's this endangered caribou population. And this endangered caribou population is a key performance. Environment Canada has designated this caribou population as a key performance indicator as to the environmental sustainability of the oil sands. Pretty much, if the caribou are fine, everything's fine. Keep doing what you want to do. Take as much as you want, as fast as you want, as long as the caribou are fine. So they, in their infinite wisdom, they passed a bylaw recently that allowed them to kill 6,000 wolves, because the wolves eat the caribou, and the caribou are a performance indicator as to the environmental sustainability of the oil sands, and so they thought that it was cool to take out their predator. So we went up there and started talking to scientists and trappers, and then also they're doing it in like the least humane way, right? They're using strychnine-laced bait traps or whatever, so that a wolf will come eat the thing and it'll die, and then vultures and eagles will come eat the wolf and they'll die, and then trappers' dogs will go find this thing and they'll die, and so there'll be this zone of destruction around these like 6,000 wolves. So again, we wanted to get up there, figure out what the scientists were really saying, because they're spending all this money right now on this ethical oil campaign and stuff, and so like there's money going into trying to form your perception of how things actually are. We wanted to get it up on the ground and figure out how they were in fact. This is the part where this might be a bit of an awkward transition. Here's all the slides I didn't use. This is the online magazine I started. This is the barely keep my head above water slide. Camera saved my life, Wayne Coyne, Flaming Lips. This is my son. This was the cover that ended up being on Flickr. And you know what? It was so cool what happened after that. The internet exploded in remixed art of my son. Graffiti in places, paintings for art school. And for his mom, there was no. I mean, she dedicates her life to his care. He's a full-time job, and for her, these types of things, like my photography of him that's been shared in the world and used in this way, is like a lot of times what keeps her going forward. It's helped her be able to celebrate him and see the beauty in what's going on with him, even when times are really, even when he's 10 years old and you're still trying to potty train him or whatever. So. Art activism in the future. This is Bright, and this is a lot of my posse that we would work with up there. This is just to me kind of represents moving more towards people, more towards heart-centered work, and towards things that affect people and change lives. BP oil spill. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my climate change activism because it related to the topic that we didn't end up talking about, the whole how do you stay strong in the face of despair. I went to COP15 in Copenhagen, the United Nations Climate Change Summit, and there was a lot of anticipation that we were going to find a fair and binding solution to the problems of climate change. There was 190 heads of state there, including Obama and all the biggest polluters, and so there was a lot of optimism going into it that we were going to come up with a solution. And so coming out of that, though, there was devastation amongst the climate community because, in fact, all the consensus that had taken place leading up to the climate negotiations was pretty much tabled. Obama swooped in with the BRIC nations like Brazil, Indonesia, China, a lot of the biggest polluters, and they came up with a multilateral agreement that pretty much lets people keep doing what they're doing and lets the other people catch up, and we'll deal with it in a while type thing. So it was a very disenfranchising process. A lot of the whole green and climate movement had put a lot of time and money and focus into making this happen. And this climate, and this was really like a formative thing as well because it sent me into a whole world of climate. You know what I do, guys, is I take photos and I stick them on the internet and I make them available for free under a Creative Commons license so that artists, activists, nonprofits, charities, people who don't have people that they can send out into the field and cover these stories, they can use them for free in their videos and their movies and their websites and on Twitter and to kind of like campaign, raise money, and do stuff like that. So being at COP15 led me into a whole world of this kind of stuff. And the pinnacle of that for me was I got to go down to Bolivia for a month. So coming out of the Copenhagen Climate Change Summit, this guy Evo Morales, who's the president of Bolivia, he was like, F you guys, you just disenfranchised the whole indigenous developing world, you know. So what I'm going to do is, Evo convened the World People's Climate Change Summit in Cochabamba, Bolivia. 40,000 indigenous people from around the world getting together to talk about. We established the rights for Madre Tierra, the rights of Mother Earth down there, so that in a legal, if you talk about legal frameworks right now, humans have rights and corporations have rights, and a corporation can sue a person or vice versa, but the Earth doesn't really have a legal framework for its rights. So developed down there was a legal framework such that the people in class action on behalf of Mother Earth can take things to court and have their cases tried or whatever. So it was a really inspiring, interesting thing where there's all these indigenous folks wearing the garb that represents that they speak with the voice of their people from Africa and Asia and the Caribbean and North America and stuff, and it was totally awesome, and it's been a big part of the work that I do. Actually, there's a bunch of climate change activists gathered up on Cortez Island right now, and I'm probably going to head up there tomorrow and be with those guys. There's the little snapshot of the tar sand stuff. Okay, so thanks for bearing with me as I tell you a little bit about who I am and where I come from. That's kind of the most talk about me part that we're going to do now. And now I want to tell you guys some tips and some tricks and a bit about my approach to the internet and stuff. And hopefully you'll get some stuff out of this and understand a little bit better who I am. So right now on the internet, I can hear my phone going off over there like crazy, right? Right now on the internet, people all over the world are sharing ideas, their feelings, their photos, pictures of their love, all sorts of stuff that people are sharing right this moment while we're up here. And I believe that this stuff represents more than just a whole bunch of noise out there. I actually believe that what's evolving is a bit of a collective consciousness, like a public space of ideas and emotions and discourse and stuff going on, a bit a bit of a collective consciousness, if you will. You can take a barometer. There's this one website called We Feel Fine, and it goes into Twitter and it looks for the phrase I feel or we feel or I felt, and it truncates everything after that feel and it puts it into a database, and you can go back and search this internet database based on feelings. So you can say, how are people in Canada feeling about the weather or whatever, right? And it'll pull up this barometer of how the whole internet is feeling about any particular topic, and you can slice and dice it by boys and girls and different stuff and different demographics and things. So I say this to illustrate that I think that there's sharing going on and taking place. It's significant, and we should tap into it. So I think that the basics of any internet campaign or project that you work on needs to be setting up listening posts, setting up a combination of Google alerts and RSS and Twitter search, using Google, using these intelligent robots to go out there, find these things that matter to you, that are the most interesting things, and bring them back to you in real time and empower you with this information about what's going on out there. So, the point is really, there's stuff going on, it's important, and really the first step is to tap into it and listen to it, figure out what's going on, and wrap your head around it. Many of your customers or your fans or the patrons of your art, they want to do more than just buy your product or they want to do more than just buy your art. You can actually, through the internet, encourage your audience, your body of people to do a whole lot more of things than just buy your stuff. They can share your work. They can promote you. You can spin off ideas out of your work that whole communities of people form around. And so thinking about the internet as a way to not just schlep your wares or sell your ideas, but instead as a way to encourage participation, to foster community, and to grow. So I don't think I'm telling a big secret here, but the trick to the internet is to have a posse of people who think like you. When you talk about yourself on the internet all day long, you sound really lame. But if you talk about your friends and all of their awesome work, and you push all the love and the traffic to them, you start to build a network, of people that can, and you can start to do this for each other. It's not completely reciprocal. You're not like, hey, if you do this, I'll do that. But you find a group of people you believe in their work and you trust in what they do, and you start to work with them and promote them and start to shine the light on them. And you'll find by doing so that you actually elevate your own game, and kind of rising tide floats all boats. So the effort here is build a posse, encourage participation, and think about what it is your customers and fans can do that's not just buying your stuff. How else can they help you? What else are your objectives here? A lot of times when I talk to art students or young creatives, they're afraid of sticking their work online because people might steal it or copy their ideas. I tell those people, piracy isn't your biggest fear on the internet. It's obscurity. It's irrelevance. It's having your work not mean anything. It's not putting it out there and stuff. So I personally have 60,000 high-res original photographs of major world events, last 3 Olympics, 10 trips to China, all these TED events. I got 60,000 high-res original photos online for free under a Creative Commons license. And photographers that I talk to all the time are like, aren't you afraid that's going to cannibalize your thing? Or aren't you afraid that's going to bring rates down or whatever? But I found the opposite is true, right? I found the more that I give away, the more that I get back. It's like coins in a karmic piggy bank. As long as my deposits are more than my withdrawals, then everything's always going to be cool. And so I share, and also, to give something away on one hand isn't to limit your commercial opportunities on another. So I use a Creative Commons license. My Creative Commons license is a attribution share alike license. Essentially what this means is you can use my work for whatever you want without asking me, as long as you attribute me and link back to the original source and your work is non-commercial. Pretty straightforward. So if you're an artist or a nonprofit or sometimes even governments, and you got a use for this stuff and it fits in, I want it in there, and I end up getting credits and link backs, and it pushes up my Google rank, and it's really helpful. But also I retain the right to sell my work commercially. So if your usage of my photographs falls outside the license that I've laid down, then negotiations begin. Then we can start talking about commercial licenses and stuff. And another little thing, I guess, tidbit is people say well, how do you know when someone goes from using it correctly under your license to using it incorrectly under your license? And I say, I don't care about those people. There's only so many hours in the day, and I spend my time chasing after positive things. Carolyn uses my photos all the time. I'm going to be giving her love on the internet for using my photos positively, not trying to chase down some guy on the internet who's using them improperly, who's not going to listen to me anyway when I tell him to take him down or write a cease and desist or send him sometimes if it's a big, reputable corporation and they steal my photos, I'll just send them an invoice and make no big deal of it, and often they'll pay. They'll pay. No, I guess it's kind of funny, but the presumptuous part is on their part using the photo in the first place. I'm just completing the business transaction. So so I do that sometimes, but the general answer is I don't worry about those people. We don't have enough time in the day to trace those people down. They're not stealing food out of my mouth. At the end of the day, I try to remind myself that when a kid steals a song from a musician on the internet and plays it at a party, the artist should be paying that kid a fee. They're actually doing the marketing promotion for that guy, getting his stuff out there. So at the end of the day, even stealing is good for me, probably. In so much as this talk here is valuable to some people in the room, how much more valuable is it when we can capture it, stick it on the internet, and let it live outside these 4 walls or this community? If you don't stick it on the internet, it didn't even happen. You have to document everything. Everything you do, if it's worth doing, it's worth documenting, sticking it on the internet, and leaving a trail. People are new to the game all the time. It's important to be able to bring them up to speed. I document everything, share it on the internet, tag it, title it. And one of the interesting things about my photos, I've invested a lot of time into doing tags and titling on Flickr and stuff. And the result has been now like 10 years into it and a lot of hours, I'm kind of using Flickr and Google as a free online stock photography agency for myself. Like you can go Google, a whole variety of topics and go to the image search. It's going to lead you back to my Flickr. There's a Getty licensing thing there. There's a Creative Commons licensing thing there. So, I always have my camera with me. I'm always sticking it online. And think about what you have to do, like whether it's like brown bag training session lunches at your office that you can record and stick them on YouTube. Those will be on-ramps into your world through Google. Everything you publish is an on-ramp into your world through Google. And so just start to think about the activities that you do, how you can document them and share them with a wider audience. I think that one of the keys to my success when it comes to blogging or whatever is just the old thing that my literature teacher taught me in high school or whatever, which is like, when it comes to the internet, it's just like writing an essay. When I say tell them what you're going to tell them and then tell them what you told them, what I mean is when I come into an event like this, I do some things online leading up to it. I might say I'm going to be there and sign up for the Evite and post it to my Facebook or something like that. So I'm telling you that I'm going to be there, right? And then when I'm here, I'm tweeting and taking photos and putting up videos and sticking them on the internet kind of in real time in like an ad hoc format. And then after it's all said and done, I'll go back and I'll write up like a wrap-up post or whatever. We got to turn that shit off. So yeah, I write something that says I'm going to be somewhere. I publish a bunch of content while I'm there, and then I wrap it all up in some sort of Google indexable wrap-up post at the end of the whole thing. And by doing so, I think you guys probably know how the internet works. Like, when you link to yourself or you link to other people, you're building incoming links. You're telling Google, you're making associations between Google and other things. So links are really the currency of the internet. They're what you got going for you. You should link to your friends, link to your projects, own your keywords. And so by doing this stuff before, during, and after, that's the kind of strategy that I use to document the stuff that I'm involved with. The temptation of the early web days was to build like a new silo every time you had a new project and to stick that project in it. So like, for instance, I'm working on a project right now with Velcro Ripper's film called Occupy Love, which is about the Occupy Wall Street movement and the kind of like heart-centered core of it all. And there's a spin-off idea that's called, that's also associated with Occupy Love, and it's this idea of like finding hearts, graffiti hearts, or hearts in different places on the internet and sticking them online, right? And so we had a big debate amongst us, how do we build this? And they wanted to build a system where people, create an account and they upload their photos and then they kind of like share them around. But this is ridiculous because people are already sharing photos today. They already have accounts. There's already all these hearts, tagged heart on Flickr out there and stuff. So find where your people hang out online. There's people who think just as weird as you could possibly be, there's people who are just like you out there on the internet ready to be found. And so it's about finding those spaces on the internet and layering your campaigns and causes on top of the stuff that already exists out there. Like when I went to Fort McMurray, I'm trying to find outlets and distribution channels for all the photos and activism work that I'm doing online, right? And so there's already all these Fort McMurray forums, there's tar sands activist websites, there's anti-Canada oil sands stuff. And so my first bit was setting up listening posts and Google alerts and RSS feeds and find out all the places where these conversations are taking place such that when I'm ready, I can insert my messages into those places where the people are already. And by doing so, I'm actually empowering other folks. Like I said earlier, kind of my approach is to create these community assets through photos and videos or whatever that I share for free on the internet and that other people can use to kind of amplify their points and stuff. So in these forums, what you find is highly dedicated lifer activists who are there, and they're just waiting for content that I can provide them. And then I put it in their hands, and they can do way more with it than I could do on my own or that they could do by themselves either. So get out, find out where your people are and connect with them. The promise of technology is that we can do what we do from anywhere. And no one ever told me it was going to be a digital shackle, and I refuse to use it that way. I refuse to let a computer keep me locked to my desk or a phone keep me locked to my clients. I want to try to find ways to let technology free me. So right now, I live on Galliano Island, and I have a photography studio in Vancouver. And I spend about a third of my time traveling and doing interesting projects. And so essential for me to be able to live this lifestyle is being able to move to like a distributed work-life scenario. What I mean by this is like, you guys are already probably doing this. A lot of you probably use Gmail, right? Well, take the Gmail model. Remember you used to use email where it was like stuck on your computer and you had to be at a computer at work and it downloaded. Like think about that and extrapolate it across all of your stuff. Every single one of your digital assets and every single one of the applications you use should be available online from any computer anywhere in the world at any time. I mean, I use Google Docs. I use Flickr as my stock Flickr and Google as my stock photography site. Everything I own, for the most part, except for my ultra backups on hard drives that like assets for the future. But everything I have is available. I can sit down at any one of your computers and be just as powerful as I am from my own computer at home or whatever, right? And this leaves me free to turn on a dime, travel quickly, go interesting places, take on new projects. I'm really nimble, and I'm able to quickly and cheaply get out into the field, do stuff, get it distributed back home, and have it hit out on all the airwaves. So think about how you can detach yourself from any particular shackle that locks you down, whether it's a desktop computer or your phone. Like I use, for freelancers out there, you can be able to find a whole range of business tools that are free or cheap that are all online. I use FreshBooks for all my estimating, invoices, time tracking, and expensing. So like you could ask me about a project. I could sit down at Jenny's computer. I could write you an estimate. You could approve it right there. I could send back an invoice. I could receive it in my PayPal account, send it to my online banking, and I'm off and running. I deliver my photos on the internet, and I can do it all virtually from any computer. If my computer falls in the ocean, I get a new one. I'm back in business right away. This is the promise of technology, right? We're supposed to get flying cars and freedom to do whatever we want from anywhere. And at least we can probably do the second thing right now. I'm finding that it's working all right. Everything that's not me actually in the field taking photos, I can do from Galliano Island. In fact, I'm probably better at it, right? Like I'm probably more focused. Like one of my big fears, this is a special part of the world, right? The sailors see out here in the islands, and it changed my life in a lot of ways. A lot of these epiphanies I've been telling you about have happened in conjunction with time spent out here. So my big fear about moving to Galliano Island was that I'd step outside of the flow of Vancouver and all the big projects and the fast-paced life and all the other stuff that was going on, and that I would lose my edge. I would not be the go-to guy anymore, and I wouldn't get all the best projects in the city. I found the opposite was true. I found that instead, all the bullshit that doesn't matter, the kind of life baggage you accumulate as you live, a fast-paced city, business life or whatever, all that stuff faded away. And what was left was like the stuff I cared about the most, the stuff I had a lot of energy, I had clarity, and I knew what it was I had to do. I'd wake up. So I actually have found that splitting my time and spending some time rurally but connected back to the internet has been hugely valuable for actually like my business life and my focus and my career. I'm lobbying the BC government to get us a cell phone tower on Galliano Island though, so we can at least have like 20% coverage. It's funny, they're always sending economic development commissions and talking about jobs and this and that. Even yesterday I did an interview with BC government about like, how do I think entrepreneurs can stay in Canada and build business? I'm like, dude, I won't even have another conversation like this until cell phones work on my island. Like, there's so many people there with small businesses and ideas and entrepreneurial stuff, and we can't even use a mobile phone. But yeah, well, you know what? There's other islands with no cell phones, like, yeah. Okay, so this is something this is a corollary to what I was just saying about Galliano Island. For the last 2 years, I've been doing a digital fast. I've been taking some time to put down everything with a power button. No camera, no computer, no cell phone. And obviously, this is impossible to do in your normal day-to-day life with, commute and work and kids and different things. But I've found that my place to do it is out on Cortez Island. There's a retreat center there called Hollyhock, and they run a bunch of rad workshops. One going on right now called Social Change Institute. The one that was the most impactful in my life was called Web of Change. It's taking place in September this year. You should totally check it out. So I go to Cortez Island, and I turn off everything with power button. And the first year I did 10 days, and last year I did 21 days. And again, with the whole paradoxical effect, you think that also, I have an email autoresponder on that says, I'm taking a digital fast. Your email has not been received. It will be deleted when I get home. Please, if you would like to contact me, hit me up after September 1st. I'll be glad to hear from you. It's kind of risky, right? You think it's kind of risky, but in fact, I found the opposite is true. People respect it. They know where I'm coming from. They get, the stuff that doesn't matter fades away. The stuff that does matter comes right back, and they want it even more. It's been a really good thing. It really keeps me balanced, especially in periods where I'm doing 3 or 4 months at a time out in the field with my camera and my computer, shooting and editing it every day. If you could take one thing away from my talk, it'd be try to find a little space to do a digital fast this year, especially if you're hyper-connected, man. Like, our brains aren't wired for this stuff. Like, we're really good at it, and we're very adaptable, and it's amazing technology. Don't get me wrong. I'm obviously a huge advocate of these tools. But set aside a little time for yourself and see what happens. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. This is just a reminder that the internet's based on reputation. You know, the things I say about myself are fine and they're important, but the things that you say about me, that's really what matters, you know. And life is long and the world is small. The same people that you see, you know, some random blogger on the internet that asks you for an interview, or someone, you know, the same people that are coming up, you know, you'll see on your way down or whatever. And so it's just really important to put kindness into the world, give more than you take. Remember that, you know, the people on the other end of that computer are, you know, the humans with feelings and emotions and stuff. And so at the end of the day, this stuff's all about connecting with people and getting people to connect with each other and share their ideas. And so just remember to be kind, keep a lid on it, you know, think twice, say nothing. We have at our fingertips the most powerful tools for storytelling and communication we've ever had in our whole life. You know, we can go online right now and in 2 minutes start a blog that you can publish with across the whole world. You know, people can read your ideas. So I encourage you guys to like go forth in creativity and kindness. Find these tools that can make you powerful, make you nimble, allow you to chase after your dreams, and you'll find that you'll be met with success beyond your wildest expectations. Finally, I'd like to conclude by showing you a trailer for this documentary that I'm working on right now with Kris Jordan in Seattle. Did you raise your hand? Carolyn and I have become good friends. We met last year when I was living on Midway Island with Kris Jordan for a few weeks, actually a little over a month. And Carolyn is a big oceans and plastics activist, and she was super up on the Twitters, talking to us, supporting us, sharing our stuff along the way, and has gone on to be a huge advocate, one of the organizers of TEDx Victoria, and was in Qatar with us for the TED taking place in the Middle East. So awesome person in Victoria if you haven't connected with Carolyn. So Midway Island is a small former military base in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's like 1,500 miles from the nearest rock, which is another tiny old Hawaiian island. It's a really significant, weird place in the world. The first internet ever was connected on Midway Island, like in 1908. They connected the World Telegram Machine or whatever, and they sent a New Year's message around the world. And God bless Americans worldwide. It took 12 minutes or something. That happened on Midway Island. And then, like when World War II, Allies defeated the Japanese Navy, like they sunk 3 aircraft carriers, like 50 miles from Midway Island, in the middle of nowhere, you know. And so this weird island in the middle of the ocean is really has been an important place historically. And right now, what's going on there is it's right in the middle of the gyre, the big plastic gyre floating around the ocean. And we were there, so we were there learning about the gyre, learning about plastic and its effects, and telling the story through the cuddly, fluffy baby albatross that are there. 50% of the albatross like I was saying, it's the only rock for 1,500 miles around, all these seafaring birds. 2 million albatross live there, they all have their babies there. They are picking up plastic garbage in the ocean and feeding it to their babies. And like 50% of the chick populations are dying of dehydration and starvation with distended bellies full of plastic garbage like toothbrushes, cigarette lighters, tampon applicators, Happy Meal toys, all sorts of weird. You know, they're dying because they can't eat any more food with tummies full of plastic garbage, right? And the plastic garbage is labeled Russia, Canada, China, you know, America. It's from everywhere, and you know, none of it. It's all washing across the ocean and making up in the belly of these baby birds. And they are a bit of the canary in the coal mine, telling us about our relationship with single-use disposable plastic. So we got a feature film coming out next year. I'm the social media documentarian on the project. It's an awesome gig. I'm like the meta documentarian. So I get to go out and tell the story of the making of the documentary. So I get to hang out in the field with them, shoot YouTube clips with the editor and director and all the different guys, shoot photos, share them on the internet, and generally, you know, whip people up into a froth online about the making of the film, and it's released later. It's really the best gig. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little documentary. Feel free not to clap at the end. Uh-oh. Is my mouse over on that screen? Okay, hold on just a sec. We can do this. Oops, it's only on my screen, not on yours. Sorry. Take two. We didn't test this as you guys saw earlier. Oh. Bear with me. Oops. Oh, man. Okay. One more time. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. Okay, is this going to work, guys? Does it look like it? Uh-oh. Working on it. Get the light.
Do we have the courage to face the realities of our time and allow ourselves to feel deeply enough that it transforms us and our future? Come with me on a journey through the eye of beauty. Across an ocean of grief. And beyond.
So thank you very much for having me here. It's really an honor to be able to share some of my work and my life with you, and I'll see you on the internet.